I analyze 100 pitch decks from the internet so you don't have to. And in this series, I'm going to break down exactly what I liked about those pitch decks. These pitch decks have raised approximately combined total of $1.2 billion. So I think there are things that we can learn. I'm going to share what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I think should improve. But mainly, I'm going to show you the ones that I think you need to learn from. I just want to give credit where credit is due. These pitch decks were sourced from the Pitch Deck Teardown series on TechCrunch. And I'm going to leave a link if you want to read all of it, but I'm going to try and save you a bunch of time and just go through each one and point out what I think is important for us to learn from. The pitch deck teardowns were done by a gentleman by the name of Haji, and I think he does a really great job. I've learned a lot reading this series, so I highly recommend that you go check it out. But let's jump into this as we take a look. Now, before we do that, let me just give you a little introduction. My name is Ed Kang. I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times, and I like to share that because I learned a lot from my failures just as much as my successes, and that's to your benefit because I use YouTube channels like this to help you avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made, especially if you are an early stage founder, you're a new founder, and you're raising seed or pre-seed funding, early stage funding. It's not that you're not going to make mistakes, and you're probably making a ton of mistakes, but I'm going to try and make your life a little bit easier because it's hard enough as it is. I'm also Chief Strategy Officer at startups.com. I look at hundreds of startups every single week. I've advised hundreds of startups, and 1,000 founders plus have gone through our program, and I literally look at over a dozen pitch decks a day, and this is a series that I want to help you learn from these pitch decks that I think have got some really great qualities, and you can't argue with the results. $1.2 billion raised. Well, let's take a look at what we're working with today. This is going to be a multi-part series, so strap in, especially if I get good reception on this one. I'll continue to show all my analysis here, but this one comes from a company called Megamod, and I believe they raised $1.7, $1.9 million, somewhere along those lines. And this is their problem slide. And there are things that I like about it and things that I think should have been improved. But what's most important is that you've got what's called a Stark headline. And this is what Haji on TechCrunch Pitch Deck Teardown series calls it. And I like the way he describes it, a stark headline that clearly explains what's going on. And so here we've got this headline, and it says, there is no way for 50 million creators to break into UGC game development without professional skills. Okay, if you do not have this stark headline and it is at the top so that the investor fully understands what they should be taking away from the slide, then you need to go back and add one in. This is the number one piece of feedback, or one of the top pieces of feedback that I look for and I usually give founders, is looking for that stark headline. This is a good one. So we're talking about 50 million creators. This is the market, the user, and the size of the market. And we're talking about what exactly the problem is. Now, here's where they've added some scope to the problem or the severity: 4 to 6 years, 6 months, 20,000 plus, okay? Average budget needed to develop. Now, here's the thing, is I don't think you need to have all this text here. That's a lot an investor might not read, or you don't need to. You can have just one line: 4 to 6 years of education, 6 months of time for a professional game, 20 plus average required budget. That's all you needed. Now, this was interesting. This sub-headline here at the bottom: 50 million creators should spend 4 plus years learning game development and 20,000 to create a game without Megamod. And I like the contrast, but you're pretty much repeating all this. And I think that this is a little bit of a redundant statement. You could basically have this stark headline here as well as these 3 bullet points, and I think this slide would have been a lot better. However, it's a pretty good slide as it is. Now we look at the solution slide. This is a solution slide, and again, you're looking at the one stark headline up at the top here, which is just very straightforward. Megamod offers young creators a toolkit for building UGC games. Now, I would have liked to seen the solution solve the problem. So if we're saying that there's no way without education, well then how do we address education? This is a toolkit that educates founders or allows founders or game creators to make games without the education. So we're missing that component. But I see that we've got a subheadline here that I did appreciate. Being a successful creator is not a privilege any longer. It is a profession for next generations. So we are referencing education here, right? But then now you've got everything in here. You've got kind of like, here are the tools that we can use. And then we've got some stats here. Now, I really think you could have done the same thing. Have a stark headline up at the top and then 3 bullet points to clearly illustrate it. This we don't have to get into. We can move to a later slide. But like I said, what I like is just how stark, once again, I'm going to write the word stark, this headline is. But I really appreciate, again, the word stark, how stark this headline is. And you see it, it's stark. There's literally a black slide with stark white and yellow text right at the top. So that's the definition of stark, visually speaking. But that's what this pitch deck has done really well. And you have to have that one big stark headline. This next pitch deck didn't raise capital. They're trying to raise a pre-seed round, and I don't know if they successfully raised or not. But I want to feature this deck because I think they did a few things really well. Full disclosure, I don't think their solution, just as Haji said on TechCrunch, is fundable because it really doesn't stand out. But that doesn't matter because for me, this is all about learning how to do the pitch deck properly. And so if you just take away, suspend your belief or disbelief in terms of can the solution be funded, look at the way, the principles in which the problem, solution, and market were communicated. I think this was the best. Unfortunately, they didn't raise any money from what I could tell, and they probably won't raise money. But I've seen many founders try and tackle this, and I think they did it really well. Here's Query, and the problem is over 14 million queer adults in the U.S. face loneliness, a feeling as harmful as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Now, there's something that's happened here. It's extrapolation. What I love is that we've extrapolated, and I just want to write this down, extrapolation. All right, or extrapolate. What they did is they took this 15 cigarettes a day. It's actually a stat I know because I've researched this problem from loneliness, but they've tied it to their particular market, their user in the problem. And that's an extrapolation. You've taken two sets of data that weren't necessarily connected, and they've added them together for a powerful problem statement, in my opinion. What I like about this, right away, you've got size, scope, and severity all written into this problem statement, and I appreciate this. We're talking about the market, 14 million queer adults. So right away, you're talking about your users, how many users and who they are. All right, 14 million queer adults. Quite frankly, for a social media platform, that's not big enough, but it is niche, and I like the way that it is really clearly defined. So 14 million queer adults in the US, where they are, face loneliness. So this is the scope of the problem, and it's bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day right here. So that's a severity if we do not solve the problem. And I think this is a really great way of automatically, immediately upfront creating empathy for the user and educating the investor that we are working with this target market and this is the effect, and we've extrapolated the data. And I do appreciate that we've got these numbers right here. Why? Normally I don't want this here, but why is that important? Because we're educating the investor of the different size of the problem in the different demographics. And I appreciate that because I'm not familiar. I am not queer. I am not part of this demographic. So if you're educating me, you know what? This was fully focused here. This is a nice stark headline. Once again, stark. And then it made me want to look at this data right there. And normally I don't want to muck up my slide. It's too busy, but I appreciated this approach. And that's the reason I really like this deck. Solution. Here's another really great example of a stark headline. It's stark right there. The solution is our mobile app helps queer community easily find and connect with other folks and the experiences and support they need and desire. Helps our queer community. I like the way that it gets personalized there. So the solution is it's a mobile app, so it's what it is, and it solves the problem. It solves the problem, which I think is fantastic. So it just says, hey, if disconnection, loneliness is the problem, well, we connect everybody so they don't have to feel lonely. They get the support and need they desire. It's straightforward. Now, what I don't like is having the stark headline, this word right here, solution. Put this really tiny up at the top and make the rest of this as big as possible. As far as problem, size, scope, and severity of the problem, and then just solving the problem with one clear statement. I like this deck. I think these are principles that you could basically use for all your pitch decks, no matter what you're trying to raise for. Now, here's the market slide. I really like this market slide too. Normally, you're going to look for Tam Sam Som, right? That's what you're used to. That's what I'm preaching all the time. But this statement, it's a stark statement, and it's got everything you need. The U.S. market size for Query's mobile users, all the market, is the U.S. market size for Query is mobile users currently utilizing dating platforms, or about 4.32 billion. We'll initially focus on the 250 million New York City and $20 million DC markets. I like the way that it was put together. This is the way that we're going to go, but we can just clarify this a little bit. We've already established that there are 14 million people here, right? You could have easily said that 14 million, this is the US market, so you could have just said 14 million times what we're going to charge equals this market. But now we're going to target the $250 million market in New York City. I would have just rephrased this a little bit. I would have said the US market size is the 14 million queer mobile users utilizing dating platforms, which would be $4.32 billion for us. We're going to initially focus on the New York City market or the DC markets, which would have been $250 million and $20 million separately. But I wanted to highlight this because it's not necessarily the traditional tam, sam, som, but it's said in a highlight sentence, and that's okay if that's what you want to do. We just could have changed this a little bit, adjusted the wording to make it a little more clear, showed a bit more math, and it would have been a better slide. Now, this last pitch deck that I'm going to show is a CPG, deep tech, deep hardware for consumers. And I wanted to show this because they did a Series A. I think they raised like $40 million, something like that. It's like massive. But it shows how you can position a CPG company, and the technology is going to speak for itself. But I wanted to show how they did it. And if you're doing a hard tech company, if you're doing hardware, deep tech, this is how you want to explain it. Take a look. This is actually the problem slide, and you use the word challenge. Again, you don't have to have this as big. Just make it small. Make it smaller. Now, there's a timeline here, and it goes through, hey, where are we today? And you don't have to do this. I want to highlight this headline right here. If this was the big headline, I think it would be way better. Augmented reality. The key stumbling block for the augmented reality technology cycle to come is subpar gadgets. The key stumbling block for the augmented reality technology cycle to come is subpar gadget, glasses, helmets, and others. You could have easily made this a big headline sentence. Could be your Stark headline right here, Stark, and it could have easily said, the stumbling block for augmented reality is the technology cycle that's got subpar gadgets like glasses, helmets, and others. It just would have been straightforward. And maybe you could have moved this all the way down at the bottom, but you didn't have to do this because what you are saying in this headline has nothing to do with mainframe computers, mini computers, all those things. And I can understand maybe this might be a why now slide where it's talking about this is the next revolution of computing, but this statement right here is powerful enough. I really appreciated this because it set me up for what is to come, which is pretty darn spectacular. So it's not the strongest problem slide there, but it does have the necessary raw elements to show me what's coming next. And what's coming next is pretty awesome. We got one Stark headline here. The next generation of computing via an invisible and weightless smart contact lens that is as natural to the wearer as their own vision. OMG, sign me up right now. I would love contact lenses. As you can see, I wear glasses. I'm too chicken to wear contact lenses. But you told me I could put a smart computer in my contact lens. This is the future right there. But look how elegant this statement is. The next generation of computing, so we're talking about something that is getting everybody exciting, is an invisible, benefit, and weightless, awesome smart contact lens. It explains what's going on that is natural to the wearer as their own vision. OMG. If I want to be nitpicky, the only thing that I would have done is I would have gotten to this marketing hype. I would have just said, we're creating an invisible, weightless, smart contact lens that is natural to the wearer as their own vision. And maybe had a subheadline, the next generation of computing, down somewhere else. But that's such a minor detail. I'm being so pedantic and nitpicky. This is an OMG statement. So you have to share this Stark statement that clearly tells the investor, this is awesome. We are building something so cool, so awesome. You are going to love it. Now, here is a how it works slide. This is pretty much how it works slide when it comes to hardware. And notice how it says smart contact lens. And really, it just goes through all the different things. And we have a little bit of description, but we got the display, solar cells, and you're just wetting my whistle here with all this. You don't have to explain it. There's no explanation. So many founders put all this information. They got all these little bullet points and all these paragraphs all over the place, and it's just filled. But this is just really straightforward. It's a picture of the product, and boom, 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 boom. We've got all the little features to show how this works, and I'm hooked. I look at this and I'm like, I am hooked. This is the future. I'd totally be interested in taking another look at this, and I know investors were interested because they raised $40 million. So let me summarize for all of you what you want to be taking away from this video. I've got more of the pitch decks to come. Like I said, I analyzed 100 of these bad boys, $1.2 billion. I've got more insights to come. This is actually taken from the first 20 that I thought were really good. And we've got this first one, Stark headline. We could change this a little bit, but I like the Stark headline and I like the bullet points to support this Stark headline. And then you've got a solution, straightforward, Stark headline. Next is query. I love the way user, size, scope, and severity started with the users and the problem, and they got me interested in the data. So a nice Stark headline that drew me into the rest. Instead of just starting with all the bullet points, that's the whole point of this slide. That's where the magic happens. It draws me in. The solution, elegant, straightforward, one statement that solves a problem. Next is market slide. This is an alternative to your TAM, SAM, SOM, shows how big it is and where we're going to focus, but you could have just changed the math a little bit. Now we get into hard text CPG. You don't have to get into all that detail on top. Make the headline the headline. Augmented reality has problems because of crappy technology, subpar gadgets. I did get glasses, helmets, and others. Maybe you could have put some pictures down there, but it set me up for this elegant product solution statement. Next generation computing, smart contact lens, light, natural. I love it. I just gushed over this when I read it. Picture was great too. Smart contact lens, this is a how it works slide, and you just have to be very simple because the investor is going to want to dig in when they go into due diligence, but you don't have to put it all in that slide. This is a great slide to show me all the features that could happen in a unique way. There you have it. That's the analysis right there. Stick around. Watch some of these other videos that I put on the screen. I've got more coming. I'm going to go through all 100 and pull out the best so you don't have to look at every single pitch deck. I'm just going to truncate that together. Make sure you check out that pitch deck teardown series from Haji on TechCrunch. I just want to give him his flowers because I appreciate what he's doing for founders out there. Stay tuned. Stick around to the YouTube thing. Like, comment, subscribe. Would love to know your comments, and I'll see you in the next video.